Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Yadhu Gopalan. Yadhu is the CEO and co-founder of Esper, the DevOps platform for intelligent edge devices. Esper is helping thousands of enterprise customers manage their device fleets with the first DevOps enterprise-grade functionality with the ability to scale. Yadhu has over 25 years and 35 patents in embedded systems and security. Code he has built helps run over 100 million devices globally. He has held engineering leadership roles over the years, including owning systems engineering for Amazon, designing back-end solutions for Fire OS, and serving as the chief architect of Microsoft Windows CE. Yadhu spends his free time recharging by hiking in the Pacific Northwest. Welcome, Yadhu. So good to see you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
So thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course. Your story is so impressive. I'm going to start hitting you, though, out of the gate with some rapid fire questions.
Excellent.
Okay. So what 3 words would you use to describe your leadership style?
Patience, accessible, and enabler are kind of my keywords. I love to have the patience for people to grow. We hire all these great people, let them blossom. Have kind of that room and space. Accessible, I walk around and I hop on Zoom with everyone and try to be understand the heart of the company and how we're doing. And then enabling them. And I want to get them to be uplifted and be able to be most successful that they can be.
Yeah. Whenever I'm talking to entrepreneurs, and we do talk about getting out of people's way and not trying to do their job for them. It's we're paying them to do a job. We hired them for a reason. Get out of the way and enable them to shine. Yeah, that's important. I'm sure that you're going to have people stay with you for a long time for that. What is your dream hiking spot? If you could go hike anywhere.
I'm a big science fiction fantasy buff, and I used to read Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, and I watched Lord of the Rings, and since then I've wanted to go to New Zealand and do a bunch of hikes there and stuff like that. Have not been. I know many people have done it, but it has not been this thing. One of these days I'll do it.
Are you a golfer also?
Golfer, yeah. I have not done much recently. Unfortunately, that's getting 4 hours out. I used to try to do speed golf in the morning where
that's awesome.
The par threes.
Well, if you go to New Zealand, you can do both. So kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Okay, what is the most recent thing that you've had fun tinkering with? I read that you like to tinker.
So, I have lots of projects I'd love to do. Haven't done much recently because work has kind of preoccupied me continuously. But the last project I was working on was I got this board that I wanted to do something with, and I decided I would do a weather measurement, kind of a rain measurement thing outside. That was kind of a fun project. Usually it's something I have something I want to try to learn about, some technology, and then incorporate it into something fun.
Yeah, I love that curiosity. It's amazing. Okay, so is there an app, a favorite app that you can't live without?
I think right now it's my calendar, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
Are you on Google or Office?
I'm on Google. So we're an Android company. So
what is the first thing that you look for on a menu when you're at an Indian food restaurant?
I'm vegetarian, so that's one thing. So I have to kind of find stuff, but I try to find stuff that's not available in most Indian restaurants. Unfortunately, Indian restaurants are pretty standardized here. And so when I go on a trip to India, I really enjoy eating the food that I can't get.
Yeah. What's the item? Because I love Indian food and my Indian friends always tell me what to eat.
So there's this, it's from the state of Kerala. They hand pressed rice noodles and this coconut curry. It's quite different from the
coconut curry is my favorite.
Yeah, it's different tasting from the Thai coconut curry, so it's really amazing. You don't get this on that menu. And so I stayed at a hotel when I go to our Bangalore office, and I pretty much eat it all the time when I'm there.
Yeah, so. I saw that your Bangalore office is on fire, just growing so fast. So are you there all the time?
Have not been.
Well, COVID is a whole new world.
So I used to go there at least 3 to 4 times a year and spend maybe a month at a time sometimes. I have not been able to since August 2019. I'm planning to make a trip this December, so I just booked my tickets and my flight.
Things are starting to open up, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So my other question is, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I was an introvert, and it depends on the situation. So if it's technology, work related, I'm an extrovert. But if it's home, if it's like groups that I don't know or not kind of have a common thing, I'll go to the corner and kind of hide.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the space where I am.
Yeah, I think COVID's been interesting for that because I've been always like an extreme extrovert. I probably tested off the charts on that. And I do get a lot of energy from people. And I think I just never had the option to not. And then COVID, I was like, I'm kind of loving just chilling and not having so much. And then now that we're back a little, I'm realizing I'm maybe an ambivert, like a little bit of both. Okay, so you started to get into this, but what are the average work weeks looking for you these days? Average hours?
I don't really have a balanced lifestyle right now. I go to bed about maybe try to get to bed about 12 o'clock and wake up at 5 o'clock with the new time zone. I think I got up today at 4 o'clock. But it's really I'm working pretty much on my computer looking at stuff at work, and then I have breaks in between where I have to do something.
How is that for your team? Does that create a culture of, especially in COVID too, there's a lot of discussion around.
So what I try to be very conscious that I'm not sending, during those time, I'm not interacting with the team.
You're not getting a 3 a.m. email?
So I don't try to send off mail. So it's my life. It's my life. This thing that's right. I encourage people not to follow me on this thing. It's that's what I enjoy. I mean, this is my passion. It's my it's at the time. I did the startup at the right time in my life, where I can. I'm an empty nester now.
Yeah.
I can. My wife has a career as a physician, and so
hopefully she's working the night shift.
So it's something that I do, and I'm very conscious of sending mail very early. There are people who say good morning very early. I try to not be part of the I want to make sure.
Yeah, that's
I'm doing
smart.
it the normal time.
That's smart. I'm sure those middle of the night hours are more kind of spent working on the business and not necessarily in the business.
So I also use that opportunity to go talk to the India team. It's daytime for them.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, but I do think that is a gift. We all want those 48-hour days instead of 24, because all day long you're in meetings, you're sending emails, and it's well, I need time, thinking time also.
Exactly. It's and some of my work is just reading about other technology or reading about other companies. Sometimes has nothing to do with maybe Esper itself.
Right.
Is trying to figure out kind of what should we be looking at or what be worried about.
How to stay ahead. And so how old were you when you first got interested in technology and tinkering and all these things that kind of define you these days?
Yeah, so it goes back to my parents came to the US as graduate students in the 70s, and we went to Maine, so we're right next to University Town, Orono, and I had the opportunity to actually have all that available to me. So another graduate student friend of my parents actually taught me programming when I was in 5th grade. Got access to a mainframe. I would go on the weekends and have the whole mainframe kind of to myself and be writing little games, etc., and kind of thing. So I got started super early. My dad would show me how the electron microscope would work, and we'd go put insects underneath it and go check out what they look like. And
how did your dad learn that? What does he do?
He's a professor in chemical engineering, or retired professor now in chemical engineering. Both my parents are retired chemical engineering professors.
Wow. And did they want you to pursue academia, or are they what's this thing you're pursuing?
Absolutely. I mean, initially, they I went on the master's PhD track, kind of with that expectation, and I did not complete my PhD. I dropped out after the first year. I didn't really want to get, so I was kind of on that path. And then took a hard break, and actually did a startup while I was doing my PhD, and that was my first experience in a startup. And that was with another friend of mine who was very much alike, and we built a product, didn't know what to do with it. And so then I went off.
Did that friend stay on that trajectory of like the startup life?
No, it's just more, we just were like, it was like, we were not in the right place. Like if you're not in Silicon Valley or something like that, it's like, it was really kind of understanding the ecosystem. So kind of, we just kind of stopped that. I got out of graduate school and then joined Microsoft. And so
in your, if you had to look back and think about your childhood, I guess who influenced you? Were there teachers along the way, or your parents, your grandparents?
My parents, to a lot of extent, they were like they were kind of showed how like what like learning is really important, and they were really good at like even getting me into non-traditional learning. The other one is my grandfather at that time he had 3 engineering degrees.
Wow.
And so at that age and at that time, and so it's kind of come from a background of like people who take education and academic super seriously.
It's so interesting to think about like the nature versus nurture thing. Like, are you this way because it's like in your DNA, or just because you have that exposure?
I had that exposure, I think. I mean, I was talking about like when I was growing up, I was like bored easily, and I'm glad I had the ability to kind of latch onto like all these interesting things that I had access to. So.
And then you went on and you started to get into it. You got your master's degree in undergrad in electrical engineering. Yeah.
But I like programming a lot, and but I wanted to understand what computers are made of and how they're built. And so I did electrical engineering, but my first job was actually just a programming job at Microsoft. And
I saw that. So they came on campus and recruited off that campus and brought you to Seattle?
No, I did. I flew over to Seattle, and that's when I fell in love with Seattle. And I grew up in Maine.
I thought you were going to say with your wife. I'm like, let's talk about that.
I was still single back then, and I came over, and it was amazing. I was lucky enough for someone. It was June, you know how it is in Seattle. And I was staying at the Hyatt, and someone took me all the way up to the penthouse just to give me this 360 view of this thing. And I said, okay, I'm moving here.
You're in. Yeah. And you ended up staying at Microsoft for 20 years, which oftentimes as a recruiter, sometimes those resumes are totally, frankly, like frowned upon in the startup world. Like, oh, they're too set in their ways, or they haven't actually done the work. They've just overseen the work. Have you heard these sentiments?
I've heard that. I mean, Microsoft, that's old school. And I hear that a lot. I think
it's changed obviously, Satya, but 10 years ago, that was the sentiment.
That was, but the interesting thing is when I joined right before like Windows 95, and it was pretty small back then, very nimble. And I saw Microsoft explode kind of in front of me and become this big behemoth. It is, and I'm glad to see kind of like them kind of getting back into more of a nimble model and kind of being able to accept the rest of the world and what's happening outside. And so it's pretty exciting to see what they're going to be able to they're doing, and they're going to be able to continue to do.
And what are your biggest takeaways from your experience working there? And what are you, I guess, most proud of as far as your contribution? So I joined when I joined, I was like joined this operating systems group. We were writing this little embedded operating system called Windows CE, and we were able to kind of like run our own destiny for a long time, and that's a key thing. And they actually gave us space for all these young engineers and to be able to kind of define a lot of the things. Although there was a lot of people, and it grew from 10, 20, 30. But it was an amazing time at that. It was like not a startup. I mean, but it had the aspect of like we were pretty close. Right, because the group that you were in was more innovative, and And so, how did you decide to leave and make that move, especially to Amazon of all places?
Like I need to get something else, some other culture, and so I'm really glad I went to Amazon. It was probably the best change for me because it kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things. One of the things is like when you're not in Microsoft, you didn't get exposure to all that this open source Linux, all these things, even Android, all these things that were happening at the same time. You're like so insular. And at Amazon, I got a lot of exposure there. One of the key things I like in Amazon is like they have this like whole culture of like managers and leaders There's a really kind of a great way of looking at projects and how you dive deep. I know you inspect. So learn, not just working on the project, like I worked on Amazon Go and all these cool projects, but it's also like, how do you build teams? How do you kind of get teams to kind of build amazing products? And so the best of both worlds. I mean, there's people will complain. There's a lot of things, but there's great things to be had and learn from each of these great companies.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've obviously done something right. They're both extremely successful and have such unique cultures, and to get a little sampling of both is a great foundation for what you're doing now. What, I guess, have you taken away from those two companies as far as the culture of both, and what resonated most as far as what feels genuinely like you?
Have people who are really have a high sense of accountability and high sense of like ownership, and like I hate micromanaging, and I want people to be able to kind of run with it, and that's key. And that was like, whether it was the early days of Microsoft or even in one of their leadership principles at Amazon, but that seems like a really good like a place to start. And the key thing is like I want people who think like what they're doing is
like it matters.
It matters. It's an art. They want to improve themselves. They want to improve their skill set. They're passionate about it. And it's from kind of like how I am. It's like I'm very passionate about it.
Well, clearly you're tinkering with things and measuring rain. You're a curious person for sure.
Curious person. So there's people who are curious. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be engineering. It was a marketing.
I had a client once who was really into finding people who are curious. And one guy, he was like not going to hire. And then as the guy walked out, something about brewing beer on his own at home, and that he got really into it and passionate. He was like, done, I'm hiring you. And I thought that was interesting.
That's exactly it. I mean, like these days, you don't talk about personal life and stuff, but I want to understand what drives people.
Totally. Don't you mean what fuels them?
Yeah, what fuels them. Yes, exactly.
I'm just kidding. And so what kind of advice, Yadhu, would you give someone who's sitting at Amazon or sitting at Microsoft, and they've got this idea, they see a problem that needs to get solved, and they just don't have the, I guess, courage to go out on their own? What were you thinking about entrepreneurship, and how is it the same or different than what you expected?
The main thing is, like, I think start with what you're strong in, and then you can grow. That should be kind of your core competency that you bring to the table. Don't be really genuine. Listening, and then complement it with other people.
I read that your co-founder has like very complementary skill sets. Were you intentional about going out and trying to find the complementary skill sets, or did you find the person and then realize?
So I was ideating that, like, doing a startup because I knew it was right. And then I was talking to friends of mine who were very much like me. And I said, okay, I've done that same thing long back. It didn't work. So it's kind of trying to find people who can come, because it's going to be the first couple of years. I'm not going to kind of it can be really brutal, because as you're trying to get product market fit and you're going from zero to nothing, you need people who are complimenting you, who are very supportive, who can kind of have your back. And so it's really kind of key that on who you can trust. And then the first people I hired were people I knew. I reached back 10, 15 people. And
always a good place to start. And so when you're trying to find product market fit, I think that when you have like a consumer facing company, it's a little easier. When it's a company that's in DevOps, like I had to watch a little video. We recruit for DevOps, by the way, a lot. And I always am like, oh yeah, DevOps, but like I couldn't explain it, which means like, how do you even look for product market fit? What was the problem you were trying to solve? And maybe from your words, what is DevOps?
DevOps is kind of how you accelerate your kind of that's continuous improvement. And instead of having a developer and an operations and kind of separate that out, kind of combine where software is a kind of streamlining software development and how it gets deployed and get to the hands of whoever your customers are, and kind of be able to spin that wheel faster and faster and faster. And it creates like a set of efficiencies along the way. The stuff that we do is tool and infrastructure in order to have teams be able to do that in a streamlined process. And it's not something that we're doing new. Like DevOps is not new. DevOps is being used in the cloud, and how AWS or somebody deploying any product these days, SaaS product out there, is using it. What's new is trying to do this for edge devices. Edge devices are devices like a self-service kiosk where a touch device sitting in a restaurant or in a hotel.
Right. Well, you're serving all sorts of different industries. I mean, I read education, retail, restaurants, transportation, logistics, hospitality, healthcare. How do these different companies utilize Esper? Like in what I couldn't translate.
So the common thing they have is they're deploying some device at the edge, whether it's for hospitality, whether it's for healthcare, telemedicine, or in a hospital. And what's common is, imagine like your team and software team is somewhere, and you have these devices distributed not just around the country, maybe around the world. How do you get software on there reliably? How do you get a monitor that your software is behaving correctly day to day? Like if you're in a restaurant, the people in the restaurant are not going to have any idea if something goes wrong or how to change something. It's like you got to do it all from your home office or your development team. And COVID kind of exemplifies this. You're in your home and you need to go, and you're tasked with deploying software to 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 devices that's worldwide. So how do you do that?
Yeah. How did you learn, you're a first-time CEO, first-time founder. How did you learn how to fundraise and the steps of kind of how to put out a product, how to pivot? Is the company the same today as it was when you first started?
No, I mean, it's like the product is mostly we've evolved the product, but how our messaging, what do we lead with? Our website has gone through multiple revisions. Our kind of catchphrase or whatever how we describe. DevOps for device is actually something that came a little bit later. I'm like, okay, that's because
it's much more of a net. Like, here's the bottom line of what we do.
Bottom line. So we had to learn. I think I remember, pitching was something that had to grow into, definitely. And I have an amazing set of investors who have coached me during each phase on how to do it. And then I remember being in board meetings early on, and we would try to come up with a new, like a one sentence way to explain our product. And it was like a different one every board meeting.
The elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch that we could never ever get. Took us a while. And the thing is, our product is complex. It's an infrastructure product, so it took us a while to kind of build out the product. In the meantime, we could kind of get talk to customers, kind of get that little feedback loop and continue to improve.
It's much easier to get an elevator pitch when it's measurable and clear, like, oh, we're building the Uber for blah, blah. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Exactly.
But DevOps can be a little bit more complicated. So speaking of fundraising, you have now raised 100 million. The most recent C round was 60 million, right?
Yes.
And so I guess that sounds like a lot of money. Is it because you are going to be hiring, or what is the money being used for?
We are hiring. We will. I think we could easily double in a lot of areas of our teams in the next year. It's about kind of getting a lot more talented people, continue to differentiate ourselves in the product, so engineering teams, but also to kind of get the word out. We're still a startup. There's a lot of people who need the solution, who need to know that we have something for them.
And speaking of growing and scaling, if somebody's listening to this podcast and they want to come join your team, what makes somebody successful at Esper? Is there a common thread among the team of we need to replicate this person?
It's very self-motivated. Somebody who can kind of be and startup can be move at the pace and be able to kind of manage their time, manage their. I think we don't want people to burn out. We want, but at the same time, we want people to kind of be able to kind of take on these tasks and be able to kind of and bring a lot of what they can we want. That's the key thing about startup. We want energy, we want ideas, we want something that kind of will make us to the next level.
Okay, so tell me, Yadhu, about the interview process at Esper and how you go about thinking about attracting the best talent.
So one of the key things is we want to make people feel at ease and comfortable, and make sure that we can kind of bring what their most important qualities that they would bring to Esper, and try to highlight those. We don't want this to be kind of a big process, and the key things that we look for is the level of do they bring a passion to the job, but their career, and what they want to get something out of it too, and that's really important. And are they curious? Are they looking at how they improve? Are they looking at other things? Is there something else that they are interested in? Just similar to how I like to tinker and kind of experiment things. Are they doing other things which can be completely unrelated? That's really important to us.
Great. Yeah. And how are you going about thinking through your diversity and inclusion strategy to make sure that there's enough women and just everyone is represented?
Absolutely. I'm very conscious about that. We have a great senior director of HR who's is running kind of the diversity and inclusion campaign. We look at where skill sets that we have a good shot of the thing where we can hire diverse talent, and so it's important to me. I think it even comes back from how I grew up, and both my parents are PhD, and they have the very similar thing. So it's kind of key that can be kind of reflected in the company too.
Mm-hmm. And if someone's listening and they're, I guess, in pretty much any industry, because you cover a lot, what is the business model, and what are the different offerings? I read that there's free, essential, pro, and enterprise. How does someone pick where they belong and what they should do to partner with you?
It's really about the scale of the company. I mean, how many devices that they have. And we want, if you're a startup or you're just trying it out, we want you to come in and learn the platform, get used to it, whether it's your first device, your 10th device, and kind of get your platform and get your devices onboarded. And then over 100 or somewhere around there, when you're ready and when you really want to scale, we want to talk to you. And then at that point in time, you decide where the kind of level of support and level of are you going to be 2,000 devices capped, or are you going to be 10,000, or are you going to be 100,000, or are you going to be 1 million? We have a customer that might go to 1 million in a couple of years. And so it's really about how, and we want to grow with you, and that's key to us, and that's really important. Customer obsession is kind of one of those values that is ingrained into us, and we will, if the customer succeeds, not just using Esper, overall, how they deploy it, how they do this thing.
Who was your first customer? Can you say that? The one that you're holy shit, we're onto something. This is great. And they re-upped.
Yeah. I mean, I think we actually have not churned. So
that's amazing. They start and then they never leave.
Yeah. And that's key. That's really important, because as customers deploy more and more devices, we do well. So we want them to we're all in on their.
There's alignment there for sure.
Big alignment.
Yeah.
So definitely, there's the early customers that have grown from, we have a company called Spire Health, and that came on with only about 100 devices or so, and over the last couple of years, they're over 4,000 devices.
Oh my goodness!
So that's really important to us, and that's kind of that's very kind of common theme. All our
it's a great indication of the problem that you're solving being a real one and people needing it. Yeah, that's great. And so you said that you've picked great investors. Did you have to deal with a lot of people saying no? And where are those people now? Are they coming knocking at the door and you're like, yeah, sorry, door's closed?
Definitely in the obviously in the seed. Say, I mean, we had kind of go pitch this idea. But in the Series A, I think I was traveling. I think I spent 30, 40 days in hotel rooms in the Bay Area. I should have just stayed in our backyard and just go and talk to Madonna. I'm so glad that they invested. And definitely, but the other rounds have been actually pretty quick. Like I think the Series B was 14 days total from start to finish.
Wow.
And then I did not actually do a fundraise for Series C. And I think, but yes, there is definitely companies who come back, who are interested, and some companies we've just kind of gone beyond where their comfort zone is on far as the amount of money or whether they're early stage.
Yeah. Was anybody giving you advice in the early days on how to pick partners as far as investors and board members?
Definitely. I mean, I have a ton of like advisors that are part of my kind of circle, and the investors themselves, they've been absolutely credible in kind of helping me kind of guide my way to kind of like, I should talk to this person.
Yeah. Well, they're probably very, very pleased with the results and, doubling down on you. And so what are the long-term plans for the business? What are your goals, and when will you feel like even more successful?
So like one of my teams is building this enduring company. We want to build this company that's kind of is not just product and this amazing DevOps product and this category builder product, and then lots of people and lots of devices are on our platform. But it's also about kind of for people to come in and join us and grow and try different roles out. And can kind of get their careers honed and be part of Esper. So it's like this. I love that part. I love the idea of developing others, and then whatever accelerated way they want and what they're comfortable with, we want to kind of help them out. And so it's at this point in time, it's like I want to kind of look at like how are we going to be and this really leading edge and like well-known company that can. That is not just a product people want to buy and customers are using, it's a destination.
Yeah. And so given that your, I guess, favorite or most often used app is your calendar, are you blocking off space to have some time to relax besides your hiking? How do you just kind of chill out?
I do. It usually gets gets booked on top of this thing, but I need to make a very conscious effort to put in some time slots, and I've actually been working. I need to get some time in the middle, like even to go work out.
For sure.
I haven't gone to the gym in 2 years, so that's one of those things that I want to kind of get back onto. That I did regularly before COVID hit.
Yeah. So are you finding time to socialize? And if I were to have kind of some of your best friends on here, what would they say about you? Is it the same Yadhu at work as out to dinner with friends?
If I'm like, I would love to find some time. I mean, but also trying to get COVID been a thing. But before that, I was doing a little bit of socializing. I'm starting to get back into it. So starting to meet up with friends and catch up, or at least let's go over here or go on a walk. I went the other day. I went on a walk with an old friend of mine, company. Yeah. Let's just go for a walk.
And how would they describe you?
They would describe me as very busy right now, and but they there are a lot of them as like surprised on where I am. I mean, they knew me as this geek or kind of who can build products and engineer. And they're pretty like how much I've grown in like other aspects of kind of business and learning it, and they're very surprised.
Yeah. Well, the surprising part, not because I know you well, but because when I interview people or I have friends who would describe themselves as a geek and kind of more introverted and want to just like tinker and focus and build, is that muscle that needs to be trained and flexed on being front facing as a CEO. And you have to do things like this, like a podcast. You didn't have to. I really appreciate it, by the way.
Sure.
But you know what I mean? You have to like put yourself out there and go pitch and schmooze and all the things that people don't necessarily get energy from. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it's something that I have to kind of plan. But one of the things is like, this is actually something that I have learning and getting used to as far as kind of skill pitching is one and doing these interviews and stuff. But I'm happy to do that because it's like, I'm passionate about what we're building.
Yeah.
So I want to.
Yeah. Hopefully you're having fun too. I didn't want to make you just get into the weeds of technology only. I wanted to know all of you. So my ultimate question for you is, what fuels you?
It's really about kind of this building a product, this building thing, but this company, I mean, it's amazing to be able to see all these people. And, when we do this all hands and see all these faces. And so it's kind of, I'm like, when we had a big group of people get on, it was like, it really moved me.